listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today we have another show lined up for y'all. We have a special guest, Yosi Amram. He is not just going to tell us about his amazing work as a clinical psychologist and CEO and all that jazz. I mean, he has a lot of great things that he's doing, not just as a coach, but pioneering research in spiritual intelligence and best-selling award-winning author. I mean, come on. I could probably spend another 5-10 minutes just bragging about this guy, but I just need to hurry up and bring him to the show, because you know how I like to do. I like to cut to the chase and nice, sweet, and welcome Yosi to the show. Before I do that, you have a website that people can check out. That's yosiamram.net. And also for the branding side of things, he has another good website, awakeningsi.org. So first and foremost, I want to say to you, Yosi, thank you for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Shamaya. I'm just only blushing a little bit with all your nice words. Thank God I have a little darker skin so people can't quite see it.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate you being on, because, hey, people like you need to be on. Like, you have done some amazing work. You have a background, engineering degrees from MIT, MBA from Harvard. I had to leave some of that out because, like I said, that's almost like 15 minutes of the show. But with all the amazing work and accolades that you have, kind of paint the picture for our audience personally of you.
Wow. Okay. You're giving me enough rope to hang myself. So I was born and raised in Israel, a war-torn part of the country, the world. And fortunately, I served in the military. I was drafted during a peaceful time. And even though I was kind of a pacifist in my leanings, and I was a shy and introverted math and science kind of nerd, if you will. But to my surprise, I had the fastest promotion record in the history of my regiment, and but even though I excelled at the military and the command and control model of the leadership in the military, really chafed at my soul. And that's necessary in battle and the military, but it's not really the most inspiring for human beings to actualize their potential. So that became my inspiration and aspiration, is to someday build an organization that motivates and inspires people to actualize their potential, both as individual as well as part of a community in a team environment. And that brought me to the U.S. to study engineering and business. And I was lucky enough to was the founder and CEO of two companies that had the good fortune of taking them public. And during one of them, after our IPO, and while our stock was really rising, and I was a star, so to speak, I was trying to relax. One day I was getting a massage, and while I was getting massage relaxing, I had what I can only describe as a sudden recognition of the interconnectedness of everything, something that people spend years meditating to have this kind of awakening. But for me, it happened spontaneously. But I couldn't really contain all the energy that was moving through me, and it blew a fuse in my mind, and it actually threw me into a manic episode. And so I became very ungrounded and unhinged, and I wanted to push my company to capitalize on the internet opportunity. This was the early days of the internet in 1996. And but because I was so ungrounded, I didn't really manage my relationships with the board very well, and I pushed my team too hard. So my board chose to put me on what they call the voluntary leave of absence, nothing voluntary about it. And there were headline stories about how I lost it in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and our stock price got collapsed, cut in half. So it was actually devastating personal loss and trauma, because the company was my baby. But that led me to ask some deep questions about my life, my meaning, and that experience. And that all led me to go back to school and study this field of transpersonal psychology that integrates spirituality and psychology to dive into the deeper potential of the human psyche. And it was there that I discovered the term spiritual intelligence. wasn't my own. It's something that was coined by Dana Zohar, where I heard it, but it really wasn't defined or measured, and I wanted to study it scientifically, much like was done with emotional intelligence. So I set out on a program to research what it is and interviewed 71 teachers and created the first academically validated measure of spiritual intelligence that showed that leaders with higher spiritual intelligence lead teams with higher morale, greater commitment, lower turnover, and since then other researchers throughout the world showed that it produces better financial outcome, better resilience, better mental health, better individual productivity and group productivity. And I just finished another research with 100 couples, both same-sex couples and heterosexual couples, and showed that couples with higher spiritual intelligence have greater satisfaction in their relationships, even when you account for things like attachment styles and emotional intelligence. So this is kind of what I'm passionate about, and my purpose and my mission is to help awaken greater spiritual intelligence in myself and the world. And it's really a lifelong journey. It's not a once and done. It's not like you have an awakening experience or an epiphany. It's then how you integrate these qualities of spiritual intelligence into your daily life. Now, I'm saying a lot, but I still haven't defined what spiritual intelligence really is, so maybe I should do that.
I was just about to ask you that. And before you do, listen on Refocus Radio, watching us online, talking to our guest today, Yosi Amram. Go to his website. I'm going to give you both. First one is yosiamram.net. That's YOSIAMRAM.net, and also his brand new website, awakeningsi.org. And it's funny, you really was about to segue into what I was about to ask you next, and that is spiritual intelligence is a heavy topic. How do you define spiritual intelligence in ways that distinguish it from emotional intelligence or religious belief?
Great. Well, that's the key question here. So most people have heard of emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? Is the ability to draw on emotional resources and information to help manage emotions in ourselves and others. So by analogy, spiritual intelligence is the ability to draw on spiritual resources and embody spiritual resources and qualities in daily life to enhance functioning and well-being. So what are spiritual resources? These are the qualities that have been celebrated for thousands of years across all the world's wisdom traditions. Things like living a life of purpose and service and trust and gratitude and humility and joy and forgiveness and compassion and so on. So from my interviews with these 71 teachers, these qualities emerge as universal. And so it's the ability to draw on and embody these qualities. And I'm glad you highlighted this is very different than religion. It doesn't depend on any particular belief system or dogma, and you don't even have to be quote unquote spiritual to be spiritually intelligent. Just like you could be emotionally intelligent without being emotional. People that are emotional are not necessarily emotionally intelligent. So you can embody and live a life of purpose and service and trust and gratitude and presence and compassion, and you embody those in your daily life qualities without any kind of belief system. So you can have a spiritual belief system like in higher power, God, reincarnation of the soul, whatever. Those are all fine beliefs. Some people have them, some people don't. And you can have a spiritual experience. You could be meditating and your ego dissolves and you enter a state of samadhi or oneness, or you're praying and you feel connected to a higher power, or you get messages, whatever from your guides. So those are all fine spiritual experiences or beliefs. But what spiritual intelligence is how do you embody these qualities I mentioned when you're in a team meeting? Are you trying to, from an egoless place, place, do the right thing? Are you trying to prove your ego better than others by proving yourself right? How do you behave when you're in line in the supermarket? How present are you at the family dinner table? Or are you distracted? So it's these things like presence and compassion and egolessness and trust and gratitude that you embody in your daily life, regardless of your belief system, your religion, non-religion. I have worked with over 100 CEOs, and they have ranged all over the spectrum, from devout practitioners of a religion to being spiritual but not religious, to being agnostic or being devout atheists, if I may say. But as they embody the greater sense of purpose and a call for service and trust and these qualities, integrity, humility, they became more powerful and inspired leaders that drew others to them. So what I'm interested in is how we embody these qualities, which now in the field of positive psychology, which was formed by people like Marty Seligman, shows that these same qualities, they have a 24 qualities they call the character strengths inventory, and over half of the qualities and what they call values in action map directly to these same qualities of spiritual intelligence that I'm talking about. So, there's a convergence between wisdom traditions and spiritual traditions for thousands of years, and across theistic, non-theistic, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, shamanism, all of them. I've interviewed people across all those traditions, regardless of their belief system and theology. They talked about what's important is living a life of purpose and service and gratitude and trust and so on. So we have these wisdom traditions that have talked about these qualities for thousands of years. Now we have the field of positive psychology that emerged in the last 20, 30 years talking about the same thing. And then there's now this research that I have done and other hundreds of other researchers around the world in different languages and cultures that are, again, coming at it from a different angle, but essentially pointing at the same thing. So you have convergence of all these fields of wisdom and spiritual traditions, positive psychology, spiritual intelligence, and then there's another field of leadership development that looks at what makes for great leaders. And the same things emerge there. Leaders that have a great vision and a sense of purpose and are humble and present and compassionate, good listeners, and bring in a sense of trust and optimism and hope that things will work out. Those same qualities make for great leaders. So you have all these fields saying, hey, these are the things we want to embody in our daily life. And it makes us feel good. It's good for us individually, and it's good for us socially and collectively.
Speaking of leaders, when you think about how one does actually develop higher levels of spiritual intelligence, it's one thing to have a vision of yourself. It's another thing to be actively working and adjusting along the timeline of your vision, because it takes both. It takes having a positive mindset and a better vision yourself, but it also takes, you got to get off the couch and you have to actually work it.
Absolutely, exactly. So, that in my model and framework of spiritual intelligence, there's 5 domains like meaning and grace and inner directedness and transcendence and so on. And there are 22 qualities. So it's like different muscle groups. And if you want to become physically fit, you have to exercise your muscles. Like you say, you can't just read a book about physical fitness and say, oh yeah, that's great. You got to go to the gym. You got to get on the trail, hike. You got to go on your swimming pool, whatever your thing, and you develop one muscle at a time. You can't work on all your muscles simultaneously. So you're working on your biceps or your triceps or your abs or your whatever. But as you develop one muscle, it supports the overall body, and it makes it easier to work on the others. So the same with spiritual intelligence. You pick a quality, you set an intention being one of the things, and you be clear on the intention, and then you build a habit around it. So you say, I want to become a more grateful person. I'm going to practice gratitude every day. When I go to sleep, I'm going to have a gratitude journal. And as I go through my day, I'm going to think about what I could be grateful for in the moment and express that appreciation. By the end of the month, if you do that for a month, it becomes integrated into your schedule, just like you brush your teeth twice a day, and it's a habit. So now you've laid down the neural pathways in your brain for gratitude to overcome the negativity bias that our brain naturally has. So now you've got your gratitude kind of going, and then you set another quality. You say, I want to work on my sense of purpose. And you think about, what are my gifts and talents and superpowers that life has endowed me? And these are my gifts, and now I want to unpack them and use them. It's like when someone gives you a birthday gift, they want you to use it. They want you to unwrap it. You give your friend a gift and you find out they never use it. You're kind of like, what? That's disappointing. So life gave each of us a set of gifts, and it's kind of expecting us to use them. And so when we actualize those gifts and embody them, then we feel actualized, and then we use them to serve other people, and that gives us a sense of purpose and meaning and belonging. So it's, again, a win-win. So you can work on gratitude, you can work on purpose, you can work on your presence and becoming more mindful and present rather than distracted by all the text messages and social media and all the things that compete for our attention, which is a big issue we're all dealing with. So each of these qualities requires an intention. As you said, you got to get off the couch and do the work. So it's not a once and done thing. And some people are like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. But yes, if you want to stay healthy, it takes some work. But I look at it as it's always growth and development, and there's a lot of joy in actualizing those potentials. And one of the qualities, in fact, is joy. And as we bring more gratitude and joy and play and humor and lightheartedness. So you said spiritual intelligence sounds heavy. Well, I would say it's a serious topic, but, as they say, angels fly. You know why angels fly? Because they take themselves lightly. So as we actually shed layers of our ego, we take things more lightly. And we see our foibles, and we can own our mistakes, and we don't need to defend ourselves like there's some deep, dark secret in our thing that we think we're deficient, unlovable, not enough, etc. So our ego really comes in to defend against all of those feelings and our sense of deficiency. And then life's a struggle, and we're trying to prove ourselves, etc. But if you take yourself lightly and you realize that, our nature is consciousness, our nature is love, we're inherently worthy of love and appreciation, we're interconnected, we're not lonely, isolated, then life is full of joy. And that's not to minimize that there are moments where there's grief and sadness, and there's sickness, and we lose people that we love, and we get medical diagnoses, and we get laid off, and all these things that happen in real life. But each of those is an opportunity to, build more resilience and reinvent ourselves and let go of something, and and then open up the space for something new to emerge and reinvent ourselves. So, it's an ongoing, process of growth and creativity and expression.
Once again, listen to Refocus Radio, watching us online, listening to us on radio, talking to our guest today, Yosi Amram. Go to his website. It is yosiamram.net. That's YOSIAMRAM.net, and his branding website, awakeningsi.org. I know time is it's like ice on a hot stove. It's just going away right now. But you talked about happiness. I heard someone say, for every minute you're angry, you lose 60 seconds of happiness. You talk about wasting resources, right? Not being satisfied or content with what you have. It blurs not just your vision, but your ability to see opportunities. Based on all the CEOs that you worked with, how was there ever a common thread of recognizing maybe some bad habits or bad intentions that they had to get over with in order for them to go to the next level?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody has issues, and CEOs are not, but, I think a big thing is a big issue for all CEOs and for all human beings, as I alluded to, is letting go of our fear and that we're not enough in some deep way that, paradoxically, sometimes that sense of deficiency or trying to prove ourselves can drive people to put in a lot of effort and accomplish a lot. And that can work for a while, but, then we're driven by a sense of deficiency and fear and lack. And that is not so inspiring when people around us are feeling that we're really motivated by our ego. It doesn't draw them to us. It's more like then when we could, really get excited by our potential and consumed by the vision that and the better world that we want to build. And then we're focused on realizing that vision, and then people that are resonant with wanting to bring that around are naturally drawn to us. So it's really letting go of the fear that we're not enough, which then creates this egoic drive that I think actually in the long run undermines us, even though in the short run it may fuel some of our energy and motivation and drive. So that's a common theme I see, and it's a theme I have dealt with myself in starting my own two companies. I mean, I was to a large extent first motivated to prove myself and to make all the money I wanted to make and all these things. And even though I was originally motivated, like I said, to start my company to build these humanistic values, but somehow my ego got hooked, and at some point I became controlling and a micromanager CEO. And that wasn't fun for people working on my team, and it was exhausting for me because I was, at some point as the organization scales, you can't micromanage, you can't control people. It's not fun for me, it's not fun for them. And so it was really working against my original intention, which is to help people actualize their potential. But we all fall into these kinds of traps, and fortunately the universe is generous, and if we don't get the lesson the first time, we get hit again, and then if we don't get it the second time, we get hit again. Eventually we get it. So so it's an ongoing process of learning and growing, and that to me is fun and interesting and engaging, and it's an adventure.
Speaking of adventure, this adventure is almost over, so I have one more question to ask you real quickly before we sign off, and that is, when you look ahead 10 years from now and this whole thing with spiritual intelligence, what do you hope leaders will be able to understand better as they get better at this? Because this, like you said, it's not you do this in 24 hours and you just master it. No, it's a process that you have to be committed to.
Yeah, well, I hope leaders understand more of our interconnectedness, and and find an alignment between their personal purpose, what they are as individual or here called to do on this earth, how they want to make a contribution, and how that can, be aligned with the organization's mission. Because when there is that personal alignment and the organizational alignment, then there's the greatest energy and power and force, and there isn't this division. So I invite leaders to find their personal purpose and how it lines up with their organizational's mission, and then that energy can positively ripple out and empower many more, and there's a multiplicative effect when there's a shared intention and everybody's feeling empowered and a sense of commitment and engagement and belonging, and so there's passionate engagement from everybody, and with that shared intention, there's a multiplicative effect. Now, I just also want to say, as I alluded to in the beginning, this isn't just for leaders. I mean, in a way, we're all leaders, and we think leaders, we're thinking leaders in a corporate setting or a government organization or nonprofit are formal. But these qualities really, as I was saying, are just as applicable in relationships, in our primary relationships at home with our romantic partner, our spouse, our children, and bringing, a number of my clients have commented that as they develop greater presence and gratitude and intention, that transformed how they showed up at the dinner table with their teenage kids or their spouses. And this recent research I just did with 100 couples proves that out. And so I'm just about to launch a new website, and it'll be on spiritually intelligent relationship, and people will be able to take a quick quiz for 15 questions, and in 2 minutes you could get a profile of the strengths and opportunities and tips to how to improve your relationship. So these qualities carry and make our lives more fulfilling, more inspired, more empowered, and more connected for leaders and for all of us.
I appreciate you saying that. And I would say, yes, as you continue to grow, develop, and get better, it seems that things around you seem to go in that right direction. Even when life throws curveballs, you're able to manage it better because the fact you've been getting reps, quote unquote, in the gym. But with that said, I want to say thanks to our guest today, Yosi, for being on the show. Go to his website, is yosiamram.net. I'm going to spell it again for you. That's YOSIAMRAM.net. And also go to the branding site, awakeningsi.org. Again, that's awakeningsi.org. Like I always want to say to Yosi, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shemaiah. It's been delightful. And I'm honored and happy to be here on your platform.